like I'm in the middle of a Godfather movie, the way the president is acting now.
I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
It's Friday, January 25th, 2019. We're closing out January 2019 already, folks. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. On today's show, day 35 of the government shutdown. We'll do a rundown of some of the major impacts while workers face their second missed paycheck today. And flights out of LaGuardia, Newark, and Philly airports halt over lack of air traffic controllers, a result of the Trump shutdown. U.S. is preparing to ship asylum seekers back to Mexico while they're awaiting and evaluating their claims. And Roger Stone goes to the Pokey.
You're going to the jail. That's a felony also.
That's right. It was a 6 a.m. early morning wake-up call for the Trump consigliere.
You're going to the jail.
Oh, good old Roger Stone. Kamala Harris enters 2020's presidential race. A little on that. And Tulsi Gabbard effectively ends her presidential bid, joining the Both-Siders party instead. The majority of the country support AOC's AOC's move to raise the top marginal tax rate to 70%. And Elizabeth Warren is proposing a wealth tax on the rich. Will AOC's proposal to tax the rich force Democrats to add taxing the rich to their 2020 platform? Oh, fingers crossed, hope to God, please. Striking LA teachers took on the billionaires and won big. Smaller class size, nurse in every school, more counselors and librarians, steps against charter schools, and a slew of common good demands regarding social justice issues like immigrants' rights, racial profiling, green spaces at schools. That's all in there. Unbelievable. We're going to talk about that and the fact that we've got teachers in Denver, Oakland, and Virginia watching really carefully. Are you watching? We'll also talk a little about Sarah Jaffe's piece in The Nation, because guess what? Surprise, surprise. This strike was not the result of some spontaneous force of nature. Sarah Jaffe's piece in The Nation shows that it had its roots in the 2014 takeover of the LA Teachers Union by the Progressive Caucus Union Power. That's right. Radical, militant, ground-up, grassroots, member-oriented Union Power Caucus took it over, and now we see the results. Organizing, direct action gets the goods, as Sean always says. U.S. trying to return to its Cold War sweet spot by backing a coup in Venezuela. And China is taking the spotlight at Davos because, of course, nobody's there from the U.S. because the shutdown, even though there was a weird kind of Wizard of Oz kind of appearance by, what's-his-face. Anyways, but China's taking the spotlight, and they're announcing basically the arrival of a new world political geography. And you know what? Kim Stanley Robinson is seeming pretty much like a soothsayer at this point. And Catholic young MAGA red hats decide harassing a native elder is a great way to cap off their visit to the nation's capital. In today's PA Focus, sexual harassment scandals are once again ripping through the Pennsylvania Capitol. State Representative Brian Ellis is the subject of an ongoing investigation by the Dauphin County DA's office that is looking into potential rape allegations from 2015. And guess who? State Senator Dalen Leach is once again the center of controversy. A survivor who's been trying to tell her story for almost a year hand-delivered a complaint about her incident to every Senate member last week. The allegations go back to 1991 when the survivor was 17 and Dalen Leach was representing her and her mother in an attempted murder case. The details of this are just freaking disgusting. And State Senator Richard Alloway shocked everyone last week when he up and quit out of nowhere. He said that he was tired as his politics of usable in Harrisburg, He's seeking to take a job as a lobbyist or retire to some cave. And Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman will be barnstorming all 67 counties for what, do you ask? Marijuana legalization. On the stump. And in today's last call, 2 Chinese companies prepare for their first orbital launch, bringing Kim Stanley Robinson's vision in Red Moon one step closer. Sean gives a rundown of the competing Fry Festival documentaries for Netflix and Hulu. Kevin finishes season 2 of Ozark. And just for the record, Laura Linney rocks. Just saying. And Free Will's got its first Sour Sunday of 2019 this weekend. And tomorrow, Free Will releases Angel. And Angel is a new age, new boil IPA Galaxy. I'll tell you right now, I have no idea what that means or what the effect of that's supposed to be. But anyways, it is specifically brewed for Beer Advocate Extreme Beer Fest in Boston 2019, which will be coming up on February 1st and 2nd. And it is brewed with local malt from Deer Creek Malt House and Bloody Butcher heirloom cornmeal from Castle Valley Mill. 16-ounce 4-packs are available both locations starting tomorrow. I want to remind everybody to tune into the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org or tune in on Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And tune into Rick's Daily Show from 9 to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday at thericksmithshow.com. And, throw him some comments. Let him know Raging Chicken sent you. We've got to keep our progressive future in sight, folks. We need progressive media. You can help by supporting Pull No Punch's homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. If you're not ready to become a member, no problem. Just go to ragingchicken.org, click on the big blue donate button in the sidebar, and, give us what you can. But the best way to support what we do, support progressive media, is by going to patreon.com/rcpress and becoming a member for as little as $5 a month. There we have it. Sean, man, here we are. It's been quite a week.
Yeah. Again, it feels like another eternity with everything that is going on.
I think it was going through.
Cycle.
Yeah, I was just going through the just some of the links that I had just kind of tagged for the week to kind of the relook at as we were preparing for the show. And it literally is. It felt like one of those weeks where the news that broke right after we had our podcast last Friday, and given what's happening as of today, it feels like that was a month and a half, 2 months ago. It's nuts.
And so I just want to start off real quick. I'm glad you put this in here because we didn't talk about it in the pre-show. What happened in D.C. this past weekend with the MAGA hats? I went to Catholic school. I mean, it's been talked about so often this past week in the media, but I think one of the things that was missed out of this in the bigger story, obviously we have this extremely I didn't watch the longer version, but these kids are assholes for what they did, and they were pretty racist. And this school has a history of racism and blackface and stuff like this, and the stuff they were saying to the women beforehand. They call it a group of teenage girls, a bunch of sluts. The bigger story that really didn't get touched on this is the Catholic Church routinely uses these students as props.
Yes.
In the Right to Life March.
Yep.
That was going on this weekend. These schools receive EITC tax credits. I grew up in the Catholic school system. I went to Catholic school for 13 years. I went to 4 years in an all-guys high school. And, this behavior is totally not surprising from growing up in the Catholic school system. And seeing this weekend. This there was no shock to me at all. It was actually for me, the American Catholic school system just is about privilege and segregation, and it just breeds privilege, and that's what these kids are all about.
Well, that's a great point, Sean. And I think that, because this is how, one of the ways that the Right to Life to March ever bolsters its numbers, right? It uses the Catholic school network as a way of kind of busing in kids from all over the country to kind of bring them out there. And the fact that you had all those kids that were there for the Right to Life March and are sitting there with all their MAGA hats on, it shows you like the kind of close association between what these schools do and what they breed and the kind of political radicalism that they're breeding on the right. I mean, I really do see that what we saw, that those group of students that we saw there, it was really like, you know, these are like the young, you know, that's why I call them like the young MAGA red hats, because like it's like you're training that cadre of people to behave in that way and to take up those stances. And so it is no surprise.
Yeah. I mean, like, it, like, I never look at this as like them creating fanatical like radicals on the right with this march and all. Like, for me, growing up in the school system, like, this march was always just seen as a way of like getting out of school for the day,
right? Or
for like these kids a couple of days because they had to take a trip to DC from Kentucky to get there. Like, this is always about like missing school and just being like assholes. But like this type of like racism, xenophobia is like rampant in the American Catholic school system, especially like in the boys' schools in Philadelphia. Like, it's just a breeding ground. I guess it's like my critique of being a leftist that like grew up in a Catholic school system like this, where it's just like it is an insane environment. Yeah, and it's totally not surprising that this happened. Like,
no, and we should look. I mean, look, American Catholicism, right? Like the Catholic Church in the U.S. is the bastion of the kind of the right wing interpretations of Catholicism. And again, that's been. You know, I'm not saying that that's absolutely everywhere. You do have these pockets, but it has really taken hold, especially in the U.S. And the fact that you see that in the institutions of the church itself kind of speak to that.
Yeah, and like these schools are getting grant money, are getting public tax dollars to send their kids to these like political rallies. Like, I mean, like my time in the Catholic school, like pretty much like I came out as an atheist. I was questioning like the very like, you know, stuff like on science back when I was in grade school and got in trouble for it. Like, I've always been a science-minded person and stuff like that. And, you know, I just never believed in the theology of it. And you could tell pretty quickly, like, this is just like, hey, there's only like 10 black kids in the whole entire school. Like, this is just, you're in a poor area of the city. You're going to grade school simply because your white parents don't want you to. It's a heavily segregated system. And it's always, and it breeds that.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And that's the end of my rant. Like,
no. I'm glad you did. Because I think you're right on point. Right on point.
Yeah.
But today is day 35 of the government shutdown. So we're well into month number 2, and now we're starting to see the very real effects. I mean, not only do we have kind of 800,000 or so employees that are going to miss their second paycheck now. Many, if not most of those employees are not getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year with massive savings accounts. Right.
Wait, so now like Wilbur Ross?
No, right. Exactly. Not exactly. They're like, I don't understand why they just don't take out bank loans. You hear that guy, man? Fucking Wilbur Ross. This just goes to show you, I mean, how incredibly out of touch. You know, in some ways, the one thing I do have to say about Wilbur Ross, and who's the other one who came out with those comments this week?
I have no. Not Mnuchin. No. Not
Mnuchin. It was. If I come across it, I'll say it. But basically, just the fact that they are so incredibly out of touch. Well, I mean, like Eric Trump's wife came out.
Laura Trump.
Laura Trump came out and kind of said, stuff this week, saying, "Hey, we appreciate your sacrifice." You know, and I can just imagine, you know, her saying that, people hearing that, and just like flipping off the TV, right? I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? But to actually have nowhere close. Like, you know, the fact that Wilbur Ross, I don't understand why they're going to food banks. Why don't they just take out bank loans? You know, it's crazy.
And like, I have friends out here who are furloughed. Yeah. Like, they have a couple months worth of like savings saved up, and this is just destroying their savings accounts right now.
Right.
But like, I mean, like, if they're probably at the point now where they're sweating it out. Like, hey, this goes on for another couple of weeks. You know, it's going to be very hard for us to do
right.
this.
And let's remember here, too, as well, is that, you know, if there's if there's union employees, right, that are furloughed right now, when they come back to work, there's a good chance, although it's not 100%, there's a good chance that they're going to get reimbursed for this time, right? Because of their contracts and things like this. However, because of the massive moves, like over the past several decades within the federal government to privatize and outsource everything, is that you have all these contract workers, right, providing all the food service stuff throughout the Capitol and public buildings in Washington, D.C. and places around the country. You have a whole bunch of the custodial staff and all this. These are kind of private contractors, right, that are not getting paid, and they are not going to be protected by a union contract. So those folks are shit out of luck for the most part when it comes to actually getting reimbursed for that money. And you think about, if you're getting paid $10 an hour, $12 an hour, right, that puts you basically right around the poverty line. Right? And you say basically you have to go to work, and part of going to work means that, maybe you get access to federal child care, right, where you can drop your kid off at the Capitol like child care thing and kind of pay a reduced rate there. That's shut down now. What do you do with your kid? Right? And then what if you do, and like I have a friend, my good friend Stu, who's over in Northern Ireland. His brother works in the Coast Guard. Right. And so now you got the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has been, they're setting up food banks around the country. It's the first time that ever the Coast Guard has been kind of missing paychecks, been furloughed like this. Right. So, I mean, these impacts are being felt. So let me go ahead. Sorry.
And this isn't about like the wall. This is about inflicting pain.
Uh-huh.
Like this is really what this is about at this point. This is just inflicting pain. Like the wall is just an excuse to inflict this type of pain on people. I mean, and it's. I mean, this is what it is. This is, yeah.
No, I agree. So let's just look, just so we have this in our head. Let me just do a kind of quick rundown of some of the kind of high points of actually what the impacts are at this point. I mean, other than the direct impacts that are hitting workers, right? So especially because there's the language of like, government, anti-government. Let's see what that actually means, right? So Vox had a really good piece came out yesterday, I think, right, about some of the impacts. And I'm not going to go through them all because there's too many. But here's just an example. If you look at economic impacts, the Security Exchange Commission, more than 4,000 staff members are furloughed, and that's delaying initial public offerings for companies, right? So those who are looking to go into public onto the stock market can't do it, right? Federal Trade Commission, which is responsible for helping victims of identity theft, is now shuttered. Now, that's leaving victims to deal with the consequences on their own, and that comes from an NBC News report. Right? Tax season is around the corner. The IRS is not able to issue W-2 forms or answer employer questions about the new tax law, H.R. 1. And according to a new report from Politico, the refunds are going to be delayed this year, most likely. Right? Let's look at the environment and science. Right? The regular EPA inspections for pollutants have stalled, according to the New York Times. Right? So, for example, hazardous wastewater, if it were flowing from a treatment plant into rivers, there's nobody there to detect the issue. Trash and human waste is building up in the national parks, like Joshua Tree, like Joshua Tree, right? And this is going to take decades to kind of to get back to normal. U.S. Forest Service that funds local firefighting squads, and it was without government funding, right? And so its prevention units are out. Meanwhile, wildfire recovery efforts in California could be stalled, according to NPR. Superfund sites like nuclear waste dumps are also monitored by the EPA. And according to the Washington Post this week, residents who live near the sites have no way of contacting response units if a nuclear accident were to occur. That's comforting. Researchers monitoring hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean also furloughed. Disrupted scientific research by NOAA, right, the NOAA, right, about climate change is going to be impacted, and that's going to affect the long-term survey results that they actually put into the impacts of climate change. And that's happening at the same time that the U.S. is expected to miss its goals, by hugely miss its goals, as it's ramped up its use of natural gas and allowed more kind of coal-fired power plants to continue. Global ice sheets are melting faster than ever, right? And according to Vox, right, that NASA's research into the phenomena is frozen. So, in other words, they can't monitor it and tell what the impacts are. Civil penalties for polluters by the EPA were at a 35 or 85% low this year, right? And that's actually only going to get worse now. In immigration, more than 40,000 immigration hearings and counting have been canceled due to the shutdown. The government isn't even paying its border patrol agents, according to CNN. When it comes to Native American tribes, the Bureau of Indian Affairs didn't meet this month to settle check amounts that Native American tribes receive for basic food, health care, and maintenance services, according to NPR. And tribes have lost up to $250,000 per day since the shutdown began. And food and agriculture, the Food and Drug Administration inspections of high-risk foods are still continuing, but the routine checks of low-risk facilities have stopped. Right when you thought you were ready to celebrate the end of a dry January, don't look for new beer and wine labels. Alcohol producers can't introduce new products because the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Tax and Trade Bureau is closed. Furloughed workers are struggling to even access food, according to Vox, and those are folks in the Department of Agriculture. In housing, right? Housing. I mean, really, the Housing and Urban Development is struggling to regular subsidized payments for home renters. And Rural Housing Service, which issues home loans to rural America, it's shut down. Washington Post report finds that housing for domestic violence victims is also, which is subsidized by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and furloughed HUD staffers can't access money for the nonprofits and shelters that support these victims because the computer systems are down. Crime and security. Government websites are less protected from hackers during the shutdown. Prison officials are saying we're working without pay. And now because of the impacts of shutting down visitation rights for prisoners and things like this, there are now prison strikes and hunger strikes in prisons beginning, according to CNN. Right? This is just, I mean, that long list just scratches the surface of some of the impacts. Right?
This is about inflicting pain on people. Like, the Republicans are doing this just to inflict pain on a certain class of people.
That's right. That's right.
And I mean, 70% of the people now see Trump as the sole person causing this shutdown. And I mean, pretty soon they're going to have to break. And I mean, you hear that list, right? And it makes you think what Tulsi Gabbard said last week.
The both siders?
Yeah, okay, so the premise of this shutdown, the argument is about the wall.
Right. And
Democrats have made it pretty clear from the onset that we're not giving money for the fucking wall.
Right.
You ain't getting the fucking wall. Like, that's it. It's off the table.
Period.
It's full stop, right? Like, no wall. And she said that both sides are, effectively responsible for this shutdown. Well, like, one side wants the wall, the other side doesn't want a wall, and one side is passing bills to reopen government, and the other side is not taking those bills on.
Right.
So, like, what the fuck is your problem here, Tulsi?
No, right, exactly. This whole both siders is crap. Like the example I gave when we were
she's the last person who should be pulling off this both siders and bullshit because she's trying to court like some of the Bernie people.
Well, look, she's trying to she ended her presidential campaign this week because she's been trying to cast herself as a progressive, and there's been all sorts of issues with her, like even being able to claim that mantle, right? We were talking about this when she was invited to the PA Progressive Summit a couple years ago and headlining it, things like this, and we're like, well, I don't know about this, right? How she gets the front line of progressive stuff, but I think that she sees that that lane is gone. So now she's trying to kind of like find like a new path forward. And she just basically, if you look at where the party's base is at and where people are at, she just basically kind of ended her political aspirations there.
Probably just ended her political career too.
Yeah.
I mean, Daily Kos announced Saturday they're going to be supporting a very much more progressive challenger to Tulsi in the upcoming primary. And so now she's going to have that to deal with.
Right. And I think that, this whole, because the bull-sider stuff is such the, that's the way that, in part, that the fault of this is in part because the media like plays this bull-sider stuff. But, the example, and again, I give this example to my students when we're talking about the bull-sider stuff, is like, okay, one side says, I want to kill you. The other side says, I would like to live. So both sides got to come to some sort of compromise so that, okay, we're just going to maim you instead.
Take an arm.
Right. Fuck that. No. The solution is the person who wants to kill the other person is wrong. And so therefore, we are not going to kind of compromise with that. Right? You don't compromise with somebody who wants to kill you.
These are non-compromising positions.
Right, exactly. And this is the same kind of garbage, right?
And that's been made out since the onset.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that this week that I think that Nancy Pelosi and some others have been kind of talking about the wall as look, this is basically Trump's vanity project, right? And I think that's a really effective way of talking about it.
Her letter telling Trump that she's not going to be hosting the State of the Union.
Yeah, I forgot to put that in today. Yeah, exactly. She's like, no.
I mean, is this like a tit for tat pissing match at this point between the two of them?
Yeah.
Or is Nancy just doing this because it's tit for tat, but she is also one of the only people who have shown she can effectively get under Trump's skin by playing his game.
No, exactly. Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday and basically saying look, Pelosi, this is what, and you and I have talked about this on this podcast, when all the controversy about whether she was going to be the next speaker.
This is how Pelosi was going to do.
Well, because she knows how to move the levers of power in Congress, right? And that's what you need. You need someone that's not going to do that. And this is the problem the Democrats have always had, right? That the fact that they think about. Well, they think about the reasons why they lose and things like this because of their messaging. It's because they're not effectively using the levers of power. And basically, the whole idea about the State of the Union was perfect example. She sends the letter, says, you might want to think about doing this differently. He's gets all pissy about it, and then he tries to play his game by coming out and say on Twitter, I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to be there, and I'm going to be there, whatever. And so, but no, he can't do that. So she just says, nope. Shut the door. We've got the keys. You can't come in by law. Right? So we're going to play the constitutional game here. How about that? You play your media game, and we're going to play the constitutional game here.
And also, I like what someone said on TV this week. I saw it on my Twitter feed at some point. I didn't get to see the clip, but someone was proposing that what Democrats should go is offer up their seats to furloughed federal employees and have them sit in the chamber as Trump is giving his speech.
Nice.
I think that would be very interesting.
That'd be awesome.
Because I don't think that they would treat him with a lot of civility.
No. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
New day. Let's bring that new day.
Yeah.
Right? So crazy. And, again, it's all the more reason, if you look at all the kind of stuff that's been going on, all the more reason it's got time to stop playing nice. I mean, if that news about them shipping asylum seekers back to Mexico, right, because they can't process them, number one, because of the government shutdown, but the auspices of that, no, we got this new program that they can't even come in the country seeking asylum. Are you a freaking idiot, right? They're fleeing, for their lives in many cases, and you're going to send them back to, a different country where they're going to be at risk. The whole purpose of asylum is to avoid that. And this is a perfect example. We're not you got to play hardball here. That's all. But so meanwhile, though, I mean, so I think I just want to, we'll touch on this too as well, since we're talking about, the political game and stuff. Kamala Harris came out this week announcing her presidential bid. And that was, I think she set, this is my personal take on it. I think she set the bar for what it's going to take to run an effective campaign for 2020. I'm not saying that I'm endorsing her or something like that. I'm just saying that campaign,
I see.
What'd you say?
I said, I see. I was joking.
I see. No, I mean, did you see her launch video?
I did not.
Her launch video was freaking awesome, right? And I'm talking about as a political artifact, right? It was extraordinarily well done. It was new. It was forward-looking at the same time that it was recalling using some of the color schemes and things like this that was based upon the first African-American woman ever to run for president, right? And so she was, and it came out. It was extraordinarily well done. It was the kind of fighter mentality, right? That's coming forward. Very, very well done. And her interviews, she was on the Maddow show this week. Her interviews that she's conducted, again, great, not kind of just talking points, but actually able to respond to stuff and actually taking positions on things. So I think that's really good. So I think that having her out there, especially in contrast with Tulsi Gabbard this past week, is just here you go. Is that's going to kind of set a particular bar. And I think it's going to put pressure upon other Democrats who are considering to come in the ways, even people like Joe Biden, right? Who played this more centrist role. I mean, kind of Gabbard is kind of seems, not Gabbard. I'm sorry. Harris is staking out a little lane that is kind of to the right of what you'd get with Elizabeth Warren and that kind of stuff, but still with this kind of fighter mentality. So we'll see. We'll see how this is going to play itself out. It's the first time I have to say that I've been excited to see how this is going to play out on a stage within debates around before the primary. So we'll see how these campaigns develop. So, I mean, any thoughts about Harris getting in?
I feel like she's going to have to answer some questions about her time as prosecutor,
Big
especially
time.
with like the issues with California using prison labor to fight wildfires, and some of her issues, especially with truancy and stuff like that, and not prosecuting Mnuchin.
That was the one I was just going to say. Yep, and that's like there's been some focus that has been raised in progressive circles, justifiably so, about like her role as prosecutor and kind of like some of the issues that are going to come up there. But exactly what you just said, the fact that she chose not to prosecute Mnuchin as part of the his role in the financial meltdown, and basically the scheme to basically throw people out of their homes, right? Through what he did with I forget the name of the company now, but basically just like buying up bad mortgages and then forcing people out on the streets. Man, that dude should have been freaking in jail, and she chose to pull her punch on that. So that's the kind of stuff that is going.
It's also like I feel like she comes from a time where Democrats I think we're in a transition period with the Democratic Party.
Yep, she's
a younger member of that old generation of Democrats where it's more moderate and stuff like that.
Yep,
it's going to be interesting to see how she adapts herself to what the newer generation of Democrats are pushing. I mean, I feel like she's not my choice for the primary, but I would not have a problem if she gets through and she's the candidate. Like I would not have as much as a problem. I think she can win. As I said, it's about pick. There's only a few people who I feel like are running in the primary this year that could actually beat Trump and win. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris are two of them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
And I don't think Joe Biden can win. I don't think Joe Biden runs.
Yeah, they keep on putting him in the mix of presidential contenders, and I'm like, I don't. Whatever.
I don't think he runs. When he was speaking at George Scott's event at the end of the election cycle, mm-hmm. he did not sound good. His voice was really raspy. He sounded sick. He was coughing the whole entire time. He sounded lethargic. Like he looked tired, worn out physically. I mean, he's old, and this is not like running for president is not. No, it's not. It's not. It's very taxing on the body.
Yep.
So I mean, I don't know if he could do it physically, or he has the stamina to do it.
No. Oh, I think especially in this context, because especially in this context, this campaign.
He's going to get grilled on Anita Hill. He's
everything
grilled on his he's putting out tweets or he's saying stuff at events like yesterday, the New York if charge me as guilty then if I'm able to work with Republicans or willing to work with Republicans. He still thinks that the Senate is intact.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, he's still acting as if the Senate is still this bastion of democracy when it was blown up over the past few. It's just been blown up.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing too, right? Is if you look at it this context, right? I think what is going to define this campaign. I mean, this is we're talking about AOC, right? What her appearance on the Colbert Report this week, right? And talk about the top marginal tax rate and everything, and how fast. Right, AOC and kind of some of this new freshman class is able to shift the entire discussion, right, that is happening on the policy questions. What's that?
On taxing the rich. Yeah, I mean, you saw this week, poll came out. Majority of people support AOC's raising marginal tax rate to 70%, and 45% of people living in the rural America support this. It is her message is resonating with people across the country right now.
Right.
Now we're not, obviously there's no campaign going on to pull the Republicans back in, but this idea on its face, yeah, everyone agrees. tax the rich.
That's exactly it. And she's able to do, and like we were talking about this before, that there's Sam Cedar had a great discussion there on the Majority Report this week when he was talking about how she has been more effective in talking about top marginal tax rates than anyone has been for decades. And that, and again, because it's something that people, we talk about this sometimes in some of my classes, right? Because when people talk about raising taxes, they don't understand. Like generally, people just don't get. There's not a place what it means top marginal tax rate, right? And she's just kind of goes on, yeah. So like basically, you make over $10 million. That $10 million and $1, that one is the one that gets the 70% tax rate. It's not on all your income, right? And when people hear that, and you realize you start putting yourself in that place, like, do I make $10 million? No. Oh, this won't affect me. But you're telling me it's people that are making over $10 million and they're going to have to pay a little bit more? Don't feel so bad for them.
And what she did in the last 2 weeks on this discussion of like the top marginal tax rate is what like Democrats have been trying to do for years on this messaging wise.
Yeah. Well, and it's already having an effect, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And also, so this week, Elizabeth Warren proposed a wealth tax on the rich. Different than AOC's 70% top marginal tax rate, but it should be able to raise like $1 trillion in 10 years. Like this proposal, like just because I don't think Elizabeth Warren would have introduced something like that if it wasn't for AOC going around talking about the 70% tax rate for the Green New Deal.
Yep.
And like AOC is going to influence the Democratic platform for 2020 by what she's doing from the outside, not running for president.
Yep.
And we're seeing that now.
Yep.
Like taxing the rich is going to be a 2020 platform for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and guess what? You can put that message on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, check out Raging Chicken pretty soon because you're going to be able to get yours. No, but seriously, I mean, it's like, look, it's like you find that there's a messaging behind it. Right? I mean, let's talk about let's look at the messaging right now that's coming out of not kind of some freaking like consultant like boiled down consultant messaging shit,
like
but that's
white paper like
no right. Let's look at stuff.
Research.
The messaging that's coming out of real policy proposals, right? And for all the time, the Democrats are like our messages we can't fit on a bumper sticker, right? No, here it is now.
Like Hillary Clinton's campaign had white papers for like their like major platform issues.
Yeah, and guess what?
That was just like bullshit consultant speak.
No, and let's look at it what it is now. Tax the rich, Medicare for all, free college tuition, boom, boom, boom. Right? This is the whole idea. This is the messaging, right? Because it's connected to frickin' policies that people want.
Yeah.
So healthcare for all, I mean, Medicare for all, I mean, how hard is that? Easy. Nice and easy.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, you don't want to deal with the bullshit? Medicare for all.
Yeah, how about that? How about you don't want to fill out 17 like pages of paperwork, right, with fine print every time that you need to get a prescription filled, right? And then only to find out that, oh, I'm sorry, your specific subversion of that plan does not cover this. Right? I mean, shit, seriously. I mean,
yeah. Like,
so there we have it.
I mean, and she's going to keep on doing this.
Yep.
And it's only going to push people to the left. I mean, like.
But look, I think it's going to do more than push people to the left. What I think is happening right now is it's activating some things that people already agree with. That who are not necessarily associated with politics, who don't spend their time thinking about it, but they're looking at it and saying like, yeah, why don't we all have Medicare for all? Why doesn't everybody have this?
Like, I wonder, like, okay, so she's on Colbert, right? And she had a really great interview on there. How many non-voters, people who don't participate in the political system, are watching her and we're like, wow, she's actually, like, speaking to, like, my needs.
Yep.
Like, right now. Like, that's the type of stuff where, like, and the way she's doing it's like, listen, this is not the way things have always been.
Yep.
Like, we're not, like, reinventing the wheel here. This is how they've always been.
Yep.
And this is the era we're in now. It's a short time, like where these type of stuff is accepted.
Yep.
Like this type of is never been accepted. And it's time to start going after them again.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that? If you watch her on some of these interviews too, as well, because like, look, I mean, she's young, right? She's attractive. That she is, she's funny. She's conversational. She's like, and she knows how to message and stuff like this. And I think, and people generally just like her as a person. Right. So if you watch her on Colbert, right? I mean, because again, it's like we live in a TV kind of like image world, right? And she's on Colbert, right? And they're talking, and you could see on Colbert's face that he's having a hard time just not liking her, right? Just as because she's funny and she's like, it's a conversation. And that's what you see that time and time again. I mean, even Chris Cuomo on CNN, when he was trying to pull his like, I'm going to be hardball with like AOC, like he was having a tough time kind of like maintaining that, like, you know, you're a bad socialist, like grappling, you know, and because she's likable. So you think about what that does. What's that?
And you cross her on, you'll figure this out real quickly on social media.
Well, that's exactly it, right? So suddenly Chris Cuomo, right, if on CNN was doing this, I remember like that interview. It was so fascinating to watch because when it was like one of her first interviews on CNN, kind of coming after she won, and you can see like almost like in Chris Cuomo's head this calculus happening, right? Saying, okay, if I continue on this line of argument and discussion, like with her, like people are going to start hating me. So I don't want people to hate me. So I am going to be nice. I mean, it's crazy.
And it's also, I mean, like she's a once in a generation talent. Like this is a lot different than like Bernie Sanders, an older white guy. Like,
get off my lawn.
I know, like she is a young, attractive woman of color who is doing this.
Yep.
And like for having someone like this in the party, she's going to be able to reach out to a lot of voters. Who, like the women in the suburbs, the realignment that's going on with the Democratic Party, she's going to be able to bring people in.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing to watch.
No, and you see that the fact that you've got, I mean, I do think, and you made this case, is that, you know, I do think that the reason why Elizabeth Warren is kind of pushing out on this wealth tax and stuff so much has everything to do with the space that that AOC opened. Right. The fact that I think that they probably would have been like her consultant people would probably have been much more like cautious on how to move this forward. Right. I mean, I think she would have come out with this anyways, but I don't think it would have been as big of a splash position.
Or as quickly.
Right, exactly. If it was not for the fact that, you know, now the ground is clear. There's a wide open landscape now where people are talking about this, where saying that for Elizabeth Warren to come out and say I should have a wealth tax, right, is not going to strike people as kind of like, you know, coming out of the blue. And now it's just part of the conversation, right? And this is a specific proposal for it, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah, and like now we're going to be debating which proposal is better. And like, well, is it going to be the 70% top marginal tax rate, or is it going to be the wealth tax? Like, what, like, right. And this will now become a actual platform for like, do you see Biden raising taxes on the rich? No,
no way.
I mean, Kamala Harris will probably do it. I think if Democrats push her, if the activists push her. Like, now we're having an actual policy discussion about this. And people are going to be shitting themselves. Republicans, Hannity is going to have a heart attack over the next couple of years as this happens.
Yeah, he's going to be. Well, you know what? It's like it's going to be this. You know, this is the sound, the sound of like, you know, the dying flame, so to speak. Right. I mean, it really is. I mean, I think that we're on that cusp, and that we've got a generation of politicians moving forward. And you know, it's not just a generation, right? It's a caucus, so to speak, right? Coming out that includes a lot of this younger generation, but also, you know, that includes people like Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren that are kind of more kind of towards the center, but that are kind of pushing this. And there's these people that are trying to hold on to the old white guy, right? Kind of let's keep things as they were thing. That it's the flames going out, right? And that's what I think we're going to see slowly with people like Sean Hannity and so on. It's just like, you know, they're eventually going to be outnumbered, but you know, now they're just people are going to be looking at them as kind of, man, you sound like my grandpa. Right, and that's really what it's going to come down to.
It all goes back to Occupy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when the conversation started. Like,
yep.
And Sam Sear was talking about this week the 1% versus 99%. Like,
yep.
That's
what it is.
Yeah, and Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so, okay, so now we got that stuff in official politics. The one thing I've got to kind of put some a highlight on this week, though, it has to do with the fact that the LA teacher strike, those teachers won huge this week. Yeah. I mean, you think about on the heels of last year, we saw the massive walkouts like in Kentucky, West Virginia, West Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and then we saw the potentials in Arizona, and then there was all this kind of rumbling. Amazing, right? Now, all those were in states where, all the education determination and funding is coming from the state, right? So that the target there was the state government, right? The LA teacher strike is important for, not only is it the second largest school district in the country, right, but it is not something that's dealing with state government. It was dealing with a local kind of school board, right? And LA has been one of the hot spots for like the billionaire investors, like whether it be Silicon Valley investors or whether it be the kind of like, the folks coming out of the Bradley Foundation down in in the Midwest, kind of talking about the charterization or privatization of public schools, right? It's like the classic example of where, you've kind of racialized the privatization thing where you're able to kind of say, this the only way to help out these kids, these black kids, right, is to kind of privatize their schools, right? Well, teachers and students and parents have been organizing now for a while and saying that this is a bunch of crap, but they haven't had the voice until now. And the fact, just to kind of like a little bit of a take on this, right? So let me run through this thing as a game. They won smaller class sizes. We should say, yes, they won a wage increase, right? But not a huge wage increase, right? But the important thing, smaller class sizes, which all research shows that actually is beneficial for education and students, especially in at-risk districts. A nurse in every school. For recall that because of budget cuts, like nurses, and we know this right here in Philadelphia and across the state of Pennsylvania, nurses have been pulled out and cut from staff because of the underfunding and the kind of the squeezing, the shock doctrine policies that have been in place. More counselors and librarians. Steps against charter schools to kind of prevent the further charterization and privatization of those schools, right? And a slew of common good, what's called demands regarding social justice issues like immigrants' rights, racial profiling, and green spaces. I encourage you to check out the links in the show notes today to go through all this stuff, and we don't have time to go through it all, but it's absolutely remarkable. And I want to read this piece from The Nation, just this one little paragraph kind of summing that up and why this was so important. It says, Los Angeles teachers have dealt a major blow against the forces of privatization in the city and nationwide. Key part here, by taking on Democratic politicians in a deep blue state, LA's strike will certainly deepen the polarization within the Democratic Party over education reform and austerity. And by demonstrating the power of striking, LA educators have inspired educators nationwide to follow suit. Key thing. Because a lot of the forces of privatization in education were Democrats, right? This is a part of that kind of Obama wing of the party. This was part of the, the people that want data to kind of determine the ways that we have high-stakes testings in order to shut down schools. That came from many kind of Democratic politicians, right? Especially based out of the Chicago area, right? So this is huge. And I think that now, because of what's happened in L.A., you've got teachers in Denver, Oakland, and Virginia. They're all kind of actively talking about strikes. It was anticipated that as soon as Monday, Denver teachers could be on strike. That's been delayed a little bit for negotiations. Same thing for Virginia. I think it was 28th is the date. And Oakland is kind of in that mix too as well. And as we see these kind of strikes move forward, this is only going to increase. So that is absolutely huge. The second piece of this is that I mentioned this in the opening today, is that Sarah Jaffe has got an amazing piece in The Nation that is basically documenting the several years of organizing, about 4 years of organizing that has taken place to build up to this strike. Sarah Jaffe has been, she's a labor reporter. She's always interested in kind of in rank and file organizing and worker struggles. She's been there in LA all throughout this strike, right? Her Instagram account has been freaking phenomenal about seeing what's going on out there this week. But what she basically points to is this notion that in 2014 there was a caucus. It's called the Union Power Caucus, a progressive, much more militant wing of the labor union, had an internal struggle in the union, right? And they eventually won elections and took over the reins of control of the union and put their investment in rank and file organizing. Right. This is the way forward. This is what we saw in the West Virginia model at a statewide level. This is what has got to happen in every single union across the country. Right. Especially when you're talking about teachers unions, not because teachers are like somehow special in some sort of abstract sense, but precisely because that teachers are in areas they're directly connected to their communities, because the kids who go to their school have their parents in the communities, right? So you already have a way of building this kind of connection with your community and building a kind of coalition that can kind of really fight back. And we see this in Denver. The students are already organized and preparing for sit-ins, right, and mass protests in the effect that in the event that their teachers strike. So check out Sarah Jaffe's piece in The Nation. There'll be a link in the show notes. Check out the Nation's write-up of what they won, right, as part of the strike. And this should put every teachers union on notice, right, whether it's my union in higher ed, whether it's kind of what's happening in education unions across the country, whether it's those unions that supported Republican candidates in this last election, right, as opposed to their Democratic challengers right here in District 1 in Bucks County. Hint, hint, right? This is the kind of thing that we need to see going forward. So I know at Kutztown University, there's going to be a training putting up pretty soon that we're actually going to be doing some of exactly this this kind of work. So I'm very, very happy about this. Just some quick notes here. Keep an eye on China. And keep an eye on the discussion of what is happening in terms of worldview. China, like I said, U.S. delegation was not in Davos, right? Like, who the hell cares about Davos anyways, except because, lifestyle of the rich and famous reunion. But what's been happening at Davos, with China has been taking a central role. And the language that some of the Chinese delegation has been using is basically, hey, look, democracies are in trouble. Right, they're falling apart. Right, the governments are shut down. You've got right-wing extremists that are taking control of the reins of their party. Right, maybe we need to start thinking about different versions. And I think this is I talked about this a while back on the podcast about some of the moves that China was making under the Trump administration, precisely because they saw that there was going to be a huge power vacuum. And this is going to be an opportunity for them to move forward with a very different kind of ways of thinking about organizing the world. And they're starting to make that stuff public. What's fascinating to me, just personally about it, is, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the today's last call, but Kim Stanley Robinson's latest science fiction novel called Red Moon is focused a lot on China and China aspirations. And this is... I swear to God, it's like, this is why I think he's such an amazing writer, is that he can see these dynamics kind of in movement. And this is exactly what we see happening now in terms of China kind of taking that step forward, is that what he basically, says this is where we're kind of moving in this direction. So something to watch there. And then also, obviously, what's unfolding in Venezuela this week, where the U.S. is basically taking its kind of cues from Cold Warriors to basically try to kind of make Central America great again, I guess. So Central and South America, I should say, great again. But so there we have it. Anything else in kind of the national wrap-up this week, Sean?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. All right. Well, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I want to remind you to become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. You can go to patreon.com/RC Press today and become a member. We'll be back right after this quick break.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day workers at the Kent Avenue Power Plant in New York City struck at Brooklyn Manhattan Transit. The power plant served as the sole source of electrical power for the entire New York City subway system. Transport Workers Local Union 100 had been trying to beat back the company's push to form a company union through an educational organizing drive there. Out of the 505 workers at the plant, only 35 5 were TWU members. On this day, 2 boiler room engineers with 10 years on the job each were fired for their union activity and given 3 minutes to leave the plant. Inspired by the Flint sit-down strike then still in progress, TWU President Mike Quill called for a sit-down to protest the dismissals. 31 workers locked themselves in, and Quill announced that if the 2 fired workers were not reinstated by 6 a.m. the next morning, all switches would be pulled, shutting down the entire transit system. He insisted that the BMT had long abused its workforce and was in violation of the new Wagner Act. Newspaper headlines screamed of a workers' insurrection at the power plant, and the BMT quickly called in company goons to threaten the hundreds of picketers surrounding the plant. Workers stood their ground and prevented strike-breaking forces from breaking through the barricaded entrances. They organized food brigades and gained support even from the newspaper reporters who helped with food deliveries. By 5:30 a.m. the next morning, the BMT gave in to the demands of Quill and the TWU and reinstated the fired workers. Impressed by the victory of the job action, the power plant was fully organized within 2 days. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. I was thinking about Sean, like, singing a little song this morning going, legalize it. Don't criticize it.
I remember one time Rick played Jammin'.
Yeah.
It's on 420.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the big man's out there for the weed, for the reefer, for the Mary Jane this week.
Well, not this week.
Not this week, but I mean the announcement.
So Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman will be barnstorming all 67 counties to talk about marijuana legalization. And no, he will not be debating Scott Wagner in the process.
Well, Scott Wagner, who's that?
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very cool. So what's the plan?
So he's going to be doing town halls, all 67 counties around the state, to talk about marijuana legalization, which is something that we should have had already. We should have now. And really, the Governor Wolf administration was a little timid on this when they asked about it back in May. But since then, New York and New Jersey have made really quick strides to legalize it recreationally, and Pennsylvania. They want to get Pennsylvania on that train.
Yeah, they want to get Pennsylvania on the train before Ohio, right?
Yeah,
before
West Virginia
and Maryland, right? So,
yeah.
So we're completely surrounded by.
Well, that's what happened with the minimum wage now.
Exactly.
You see that? We're all
I mean, this is what, it's unfortunate. I've said before, it's unfortunate that for Pennsylvania to move in a progressive direction and has to basically fear that it's going to lose out on money, right? But
yeah, and it's exactly what it is. We're going to be losing out revenue on people going to New York or going to New Jersey for weed. I mean, there are a lot of Philadelphians who like to drink down the shore in the summertime, and I am pretty sure that they would not mind stopping at a pot shop on the way down to the beach for the weekend. It's, I mean, yeah, I still smoke. I think the social, I know, but no, I mean, a lot of my friends smoke. I think the social stigma is, there's no more social stigma to it, as legalization is happening. Adults continue to smoke throughout. I mean, marijuana smoking is on par with cigarette smoking in the country, which I did not realize it's that high.
I didn't either. Wow.
Yeah, 24% of Americans say they smoke cigarettes. 22% say they smoke marijuana on a habitual basis, which is pretty fucking high.
Yeah.
For think about when you start thinking about in those terms, the more legalization is going to happen, the more people admit that they smoke, and it's something that just needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think it will. And again, and I want to be fair to Fetterman on this one too, because when I said that, it's a shame that Pennsylvania takes Pennsylvania threat of losing revenue. Fetterman has not been one of those people. I mean, he's been behind this for a while.
For years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is in many ways we're starting to see some of his stamp on state government too as well, that he's willing to go out and do this, and he's well positioned to do it. I mean, he's not going in as some some hipster from Harrisburg, kind of living by the river, going out there trying to make this message.
Who would that be?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's got cred. You know what I mean? To go through all these counties and be able to make this, and this is exactly what it takes, right? It's not kind of like people saying, "Oh, look, there's these conservative counties." No, you just go out and you make your case about why this is important. And I have to say that,
and I guarantee you, people he's going to be hitting up Jake Corman's district. He's going to be hitting up Fernandes' district. These are people who are against legalization, and I guarantee you, people are going to be coming out in those districts who are absolutely for legalization.
Well, I'll tell you, this was a barometer for me in some ways, right? Now, again, this is not legalization. This is about the medical marijuana, right? Which is, these are different things. But I took my daughter for a haircut, right? At this place right here in Pokey, right? Down here. And I'm sitting there and she's getting her haircut and I'm just kind of, listening to conversations and stuff. And there's this woman, probably my guess is like in her early 50s, right? Looks like somebody's mom, right? Somebody's mom or like young grandmother or something like this, and she's sitting there. She's getting a haircut by this woman in there, and she starts just she's just talking to her, telling her a story, and there must have been a friend that they had talked about before, or maybe they both knew. It sounded like she had cancer or something like this. And so this woman starts saying that, oh yeah, her friend, she's like her friend's like, she swore by it. She actually went out and she moved for a while to Colorado and got marijuana, and they had these edibles or whatever. And she really helped her. And she had been trying to convince me for years, or for a while now, that, I should really give it a shot because it was the same kind of condition. And so she's like, finally I was like, okay, well, after they made it legal here, I told her, okay, we'll go. You went with her and we sampled. She was like, you go in there and it's like, it's not seedy or something. It's like there's, they talk you through it.
Legitimacy to the
exactly. And she was like, it was really helpful. And because I had my card that I got from Pennsylvania, I could have it shipped directly to my house, right? And they had all this kind of stuff. And she was like, you know what? It says it's made a huge difference. And so. And she even said in that conversation, she was like, I never thought I would be like that kind of. So that's part of that breakdown of that stigma, right? That we kind of see what's happening.
And it's also the type of thing where we lost out on decades of research.
Yep.
On marijuana. I mean, it's not just like the psychoactive THC. There's a bunch of non-psychoactive cannabinoids where we neglected the research on them because of this reefer madness for the past 60, 70 years. Yeah. And our bodies have these cannabinoid receptors in them, everywhere in our, and so CBD, is a huge medical component of the medical marijuana. And it's not like these are curing your illnesses; they're relieving the stress.
Right.
They are allowing cancer patients to have an appetite to eat and stay healthy that way. I mean, it's.
Well, and if you look at the impact of a lot of the again, it's going to take a while before all the research is actually going to be able to catch up to where we go. But a lot of the claims and a lot of some of the preliminary research is showing that just like you said, we're not talking about cure-alls here. We're basically saying, okay, instead of doping someone up on opioids, right? That in many cases that you can have kind of this. Marijuana-based medications, right? These cannabinoid-based medications that are actually going to relieve some of the stress and strain, so that people aren't going into kind of the addictive road of opioids.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to happen sooner or later. I think it's going to happen sooner, and it's just upending decades worth of shitty policy. I mean, yes, it is. It should be regulated. It is like alcohol. It is like tobacco, and it should be regulated in a federal level like that. I mean, it's going to eventually.
Yep, well, there we have it. So look for that Fetterman. We'll be checking out some of his town halls and stuff like this. So what makes me wonder? I mean, do you think Richard Alloy is kind of out there looking for his pot fix or what? I mean, what the hell happened to him this week?
He up and resigned last Friday out of nowhere.
It was freaking weird.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out. A lot of rumors are out here in Harrisburg around why he had to resign. They're just rumors at this point, so I can't really get into them.
Yep.
But he allegedly said that he's tired of politics as usual and wants to become a lobbyist in Harrisburg.
There you go. So I'm tired of politics, so I'm going to become a lobbyist.
Yes.
Just like let that percolate in your brain for a little bit.
I'm just going to jump right into the revolving door of Harrisburg.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you think like I'm tired of politics, so I'm going to go back into the workforce and just kind of like, you know what? No. I'm going to become even more embedded in politics, right? Just not.
I'm going to work for people that enabled me to begin with.
Right, exactly. So just like whatever. So there's going to be a story there. I would almost surely bet because that's too strange. Right.
Yeah. And he shocked everyone. Like literally, like on Wednesday, he was talking about how he's really looking forward to working on issues within the Senate with leadership and everything. And then Friday comes around and he resigns.
Yep.
So yeah, it kind of took everyone by surprise.
Yeah, it's got the things that make you go and stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that make you go the return of the repressed seems to be all over Harrisburg this week. Holy shit! That you've got. Well, why don't you just take it away? I mean, where do you want to start with this? Because this is like major shakeup again.
We have two major Me Too scandals breaking right here in Harrisburg right now. If you have any kids right now, I would not recommend having them listen. So you all have been warned. State Representative Brian Ellis has been is under a criminal investigation for potential rape allegations going back to 2015. He was allegedly out with a woman, state worker, making advances on her. She said no. And then she ended up passing out, going back to his apartment, and he told her the next morning that they had sex that night as she was passed out drunk. So that's really bad. That's horribly disgusting, and he will probably be forced to resign. He's probably will be. I mean, talking Harrisburg. I mean, these rumors have been swirling around since like last week. A lot of stuff, just like the rumor mill was lit pretty much on Friday afternoon. And was kept on churning through the weekend on stuff that was going down. Brian Ellis was one of them, and a lot of people are expecting him to be potentially be indicted within the coming weeks.
It's freaking crazy, man. It's absolutely disgusting.
I mean, it's completely disgusting and indefensible, and just like he should be forced to resign. Brian Ellis was one of the Republicans we were talking about that wanted to overthrow Mike Turzai after they came really close to doing so. Mm-hmm. If Democrats came close, but they did not.
Man, so are the calls for his resignation going to be made?
Governor Wolf has already called for his resignation, yes.
So Governor Wolf has called for his resignation. Well, that's one thing at least too as well. And where's he coming down on this?
What do you mean, Wolf?
No, I'm saying like Ellis, right? I mean, is Ellis going to resign?
He hasn't returned any contact to any reporters when the story broke.
Man, I hope there is swift justice on this one.
But I think it sounds like he's going to be forced to resign soon.
Good.
And then State Senator Dalen Leach is back at it.
Here we go. Right, so State Senator Dalen Leach, right? Now, we've been tracking Dalen Leach now for a while, since the quote-unquote progressive lion has showed himself to be kind of like a scumbag behind doors, and both kind of just in terms of treatment of his staff, right, and kind of sexual inappropriate comments being made to more serious allegations, and the Pittsburgh Penn Live actually broke the story when? Today? Yesterday? Yesterday. So walk us through.
So I'm just pulling something up on my
that's fine.
Twitter account real quick. So this allegation that was reported yesterday has been something that people have known about in the Capitol for about a year now. It's been rumored. This woman, a survivor, Kara Taylor, who agreed to name herself publicly in this. She, one second, I'm just trying to find. She alleged that Dalen Leach in 1991 forced her to perform oral sex on him when she was 17 years old, a minor, and Dalen Leach was working in the Allentown Public Defender's office defending her and her mother in an attempted murder case. This woman, Kara Taylor, perjured herself in this trial to cover for the mother. She was claimed that she was the one who attempted murder, but really it was her mother who did. And because of these perjury charges against her and this perjury conviction, there was played a lot into the reason why the news wasn't that she was not seen credible over the past year. It seems like this was the reason why they did not publish the story. The newspapers had this for about a year now, since last March. But this is the story I think Dalen was successful in having killed. So going now, last week, this woman, Kara Taylor, was in the Senate office. She had a complaint. She written up a complaint detailing her experiences with Leach, and she hand-delivered them to every single Senate office in the Capitol. The office of every single senator. And it got people's attention real quickly.
Yeah,
like
well, I would hope so.
Yeah.
So let's just, okay, I want to read just a section here, just in terms of the response.
Let me just say, Dalen Leach is also threatening to sue Kara Taylor and the activists involved in trying to get this story out into the open.
Right, and this is the perfect example. This is related exactly to this. I want you to see, this is the kind of thing that you need to put a pin in and recall the way that this guy is responding. So here it is. This is from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. In a 7-paragraph statement posted to his Twitter account Thursday, the senator promised to file a defamation lawsuit against, quote, some of the leaders of the effort to defame me, unquote. He referred to, quote, a small group of about 6 to 8 people, unquote, that he said had disrupted recent public events. Earlier this month, for instance, protesters burst into a PA Medical Cannabis Society dinner in Harrisburg, where Mr. Leach was the keynote speaker. Quote, I have spent my career as a lawyer and activist and legislator fighting injustice, he wrote. This is an injustice. So the point being here is that he is not backing down, and he is going to fight this.
He's tripling down at this point.
Right. This is like I guess this is his Brett Kavanaugh movement, where he's going to make sure that he's going to be the victim in all of this, and it's going to play itself out. Doing
the whole entire year has been making himself the victim in all of this, and made himself the victim to the point where he called one of our friends a wrecking ball of hate, attacking, personally naming and shaming other women who came forward against him. I mean, this is an allegation that people within the newsroom and within the Capitol have known about for about a year, and within progressive circles in Harrisburg. We were all just waiting for this to go public at this point, and now it's out there.
Well, yeah, and now that it's this is the key thing, right? Because I mean, in order,
I've known about this for a while just from talking to people in the Capitol, and I could not talk about this publicly.
Yeah.
It was just, it was just like that type of an issue, because I don't want to get sued for bringing something like this up.
No, right. And my understanding is that this Kara Taylor has been trying to get her story, attention to her story for a while. And it took the fact, can you imagine this going down to she distributed her story, right?
To all senators individually.
Right. And so it was a private criminal complaint that she filled out, right? And then she delivered it to all of the all of them, so that they can't deny it.
And this woman has been unrelenting in the past year too, showing up to protests saying Dalen raped me, where's my Me Too at? And I mean, she's been putting herself out there, publicly speaking, publicly going to protest for a year now. And I mean, she's really convincing. And I believe the story, I know some of the organizers, and they are 100% behind her. A lot of people are 100% behind her.
Right. And I get the, I understand.
And it wasn't really published because of her perjury charge against her. and conviction.
Right. So, I mean, I get where the caution was on this, right? The reason that you said, right? I mean, until you've got something that's substantial, until you've got some documented part about they're willing to people to come forward on the record, right, in this kind of way, and for a major news outlet, right, or charges to be filed, that this is I could see reporters wanted to make sure this is nailed down, and now it is. So the big question is, where does this go forward, right? Man, it's this. I do see that Senate Democrats have hired an outside law firm to investigate the complaint. Yes. I think it would be appropriate for there to be a call for Dan Leach to kind of step down from his position at this point.
And he should be stripped of his committee assignments. He should not be co-chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Yes.
I mean, at the very, very least, right? And so we're going to see, because this is one of these moments of reckoning, for Dalen Leach, obviously, but for Pennsylvania Democrats and Pennsylvania government in general, right? That, who do you stand with, right? Everyone you saw kind of the pushes kind of believe the women. Well, this is the other opportunity for the Democratic Party to say, are you with us or are you against us?
And you look at it like this right here. This paragraph, really, Senate Minority Leader Jay Costa said he decided to hire law firm Eckert Siemens to remove any participation that Leach's colleagues, perception that Leach's colleagues were directing the outcome of this investigation.
Yeah, and I think that's a good move.
If we did internally, there could be someone who would say we manufactured the outcome we desired. Said Mr. Costa. Listen, whatever happens there will be the findings, and they will be reported back to me. They really want to actually go with internal lawyers, like an internal investigation.
Yeah, I think some of these. Go ahead. Sorry.
It took some of these members to stand up and say, "No, if you do this, we're going public."
Yeah. That's good, because if you sit there and again, I think Costa's already tarnished on this now, right? By the fact that there was a desire for him to keep this private, to keep this under wraps, to keep it just internal, as opposed to saying, no, we're going to do this out in the light of day, because if allegations this serious, especially in the context that we're in now, although frankly, I shouldn't have to even qualify it as like that. Just like, period. Right? Everybody should have the right to know what the outcome of this is. Right? So there you go. So, yep. Check it out. I mean, from some disturbing reading, there you have it. So what's been the sense? I mean, I know this just broke. So what's been the kind of response thus far to this, to these articles breaking?
Nothing really too much. I think everyone who wanted Dan Leach to resign last year still want Leach to resign now. And I mean, this is the type of thing that happened back in 1991, and it's something you can't litigate in court. But these allegations must be listened to and must be heard. Mm-hmm. And we must listen to. We have to listen to Kara and what she has to say, because of the way Leach has responded in the past, year over this stuff. I think her story is legitimate. Can you prove it in court? Probably not. Can you disprove it? No. Yep. But yeah, I think the lawsuit he wants to bring against people, the activists involved, is retribution to going after, to constantly protesting him since the past year, and retribution for the stories that came out last year, that came out in December 2017. That's what I see this as. Well, I think I said this last year at some point. One of his consultants, Lisa Longo, got in contact with me to try actually have me sit down and speak with Dalen Leach in a public setting. I said, no. She's been paid close to $20,000 by Leach in the past year to go around and harass people. He's paying off his, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this is almost like Trumpian in the way it's unfolding.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like it's
like this is.
It's so
like
disturbing.
You have your fixer out there going around messing with people. You have, yeah.
Yep. Well,
You're going to the jail.
I hope. Man, so here's something to keep an eye on, folks. There is going to be more shakeups, and if you recall that, there's a crew of folks now in Harrisburg that are no longer going to put up with this kind of garbage, and they're going to demand public accounting of not just this kind of these sexual harassment and sexual assaults, but the kind of old boys network that has dominated Pennsylvania politics for so long. And the fact that so many of the old boys are starting to get kicked out has everything to do with why this is happening now. So here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Well, anything else we got going around the state, Sean?
No, I think we covered it. Next couple weeks should be interesting.
The next couple of weeks will be interesting, right? So there we have it. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do a little quick last call. All right, a little space news, a little beer news. We'll talk a little TV. We'll go on from there. So this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be back right after this. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull-no-punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no-access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. It's today's last call. We talk space news, we talk beer, we talk, TV, whatever's kind of on our mind, little fun kind of way to wrap up the day. So my one thing on space news, just connected, I kind of did a little teaser of this in the first segment, is that you got two Chinese companies that are preparing for their first orbital launch coming up. And that just echoes the whole premise, or at least a lot of the setting of Kim Stanley Robinson's new book in Red Moon. I'm almost done with Red Moon. It's taken me longer than I want because, life. But it's what's interesting about it, the whole premise in there is that, you've got the bulk of the moon, right? Moon's being colonized, and the major player on the moon is China. Right. And there's what's really cool about the book, right, in ways that I hadn't expected, is that a lot of it is taking place within kind of like within China and with Chinese actors. Right. So you kind of get this window in, and there's some really kind of interesting takes in there about the way that China moves in terms of like the way that the party structure works and that kind of thing. But one of the things that always stood out to me is the one thing that China does well, right, is infrastructure, right, where the West does not do infrastructure well anymore, used to, not anymore. And so when the party decides, right, that you're going to do something, they do these major, crazy infrastructure stuff. Like you have the Three Gorges Dam, for example, is a perfect example of this, that, sent millions of people, like, fleeing from their homes. They had to got to be removed. It was like, I'm not saying that this is a positive development, right, the Three Gorges Dam. But it's like this massive undertaking in a time, a period in history where the West has basically turned its back on major infrastructure developments. So China has already been kind of like looking for kind of entering the space race in a very conscious way, and they're the ones, right, who are positioned to do the infrastructure work, right? So and have that kind of drive, precisely because they don't need democratic checks, right, to make a decision to move forward on this, right? So this is going to be fascinating. So you're going to have the jockeying in the West. We're going to have these jockeying of positions by these kind of like billionaire-owned companies like SpaceX, like Amazon. Blue Origin this week also, which is Amazon's kind of version of this, just launched its showed its video of its latest version of its heavy rocket that it's going to be start testing pretty soon in order to target some of the moon landing and some of the colonization stuff. So you're going to have a Chinese model of development is going to be going directly up against the West's kind of like all in for free market kind of go billionaire model of development in space. And my argument, as I've been making in kind of like this piecemeal way for a while, is that this is essentially what we're going the political geography that is going to get being played out like globally, and the space is going to be one of the places where we're going to see this get played out. So we've got the rise of kind of right-wing oligarchs, right, and crazy kind of mobster politics, right, in the West. At the same time, a resurgent left, and kind of democracies that are kind of being put at risk. We've got China expanding its influence to Africa, right, and all throughout the kind of region, looking to kind of make major scale investments moving forward. So it's fascinating. So if you want to kind of window into some of that stuff, I mean, I do recommend Red Moon by Kim Stanley Robinson. It's a really good read, cool characters, and if you think about it in the terms that I've just talked about, it's actually, you get a window into the story in a different way. So pretty cool. So, Sean, you were kind of up late watching some Netflix lately, huh?
Yes, plugged into the some pop culture stuff.
Whoop, whoop.
That I thought was like really interesting. There's bigger messages in these documentaries. I watched the documentaries on the Fire Festival. It's like, so I recommend watching both of them on Netflix and Hulu. Netflix gives it. The Netflix one gives you an on-the-ground perception and feeling of like what's happening as this festival is just devolving into a train wreck. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like watching the Netflix one, you definitely get like, okay, this is just a slow motion train wreck, and the train has just left the gates.
Well, remind people what was the Fire Festival?
Fire Festival was supposed to be like this high-end music festival on a Bohemian island that was originally like Norman's Cay, that was owned by Pablo Escobar. And so they were told not to use Pablo Escobar's name in the promotion. They used Pablo Escobar's name in the promotion from his lawyers. They were told not to do this. And so it was like moved to a different island on this like gravel pit. And the people get there, they are housed in like, all the bands end up dropping, but people are like in mid-flight there. And once everyone gets there, it's like all these uber rich people who paid for this, like rich millennials who are part of like this influencer Instagram brand culture that goes on. And
right, and the thing is like the underlying message of all the promotional stuff is like it's just going to be a sex fest. It's going to be sex and drugs fest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the whole marketing of it.
But it was like with like supermodels,
right,
and stuff like that. It wasn't like Coachella or Bonnaroo or Fire Festival, where like, or not Fire, Firefly, mm-hmm. which like some of these like a lot of people do acid at these things.
Right.
So
right,
you had a bunch of rich people show up. They thought they were going to get like a private jet to like the festival, and so they got a big yellow school bus busing all these people in, and it just. They were promised like these villas, and instead they were put in like FEMA tents.
No shit, man.
And like the day before the festival, like the night of like 4:00 in the morning, a bunch of the organizers are standing outside knowing this is a total fucking shit show. And it just downpours and destroys everything. And they all just start laughing like in like not catharsis.
I was gonna say there's a little bit of cathartic kind of
like
piece
gallows
of this.
humor. Like, man, this is
gallows humor. Yeah, exactly.
You have like hundreds of these people showing up next day, of like rich people, and almost like a full scale riot almost blows out. Like in this, you're lucky someone didn't die and get killed. But
I look like a full scale riot among like rich people looks like.
Yeah, and like it was actually like really funny because like I went back and researching it, and like on Twitter, like there was this kid like who posted a photo. It was like they interviewed him. I was like, I won this free trip from work, and like I'm middle class, and they like all expenses paid. Like it's actually pretty fun coming here and watching all these rich people like go into a fucking riot almost over this. But I mean, the Netflix documentary, you definitely get the scale that this thing's a scam, and everyone's just getting hoodwinked left and right. But like the Hulu version shows you like this guy's upbringing, Billy McFarland, and how he goes from like he's running all these cons, and he was basically like he needed like to get on to the next con to keep his con going, and he like somehow managed to like con Ja Rule and like all these big influencers to like get this music festival together. He spent like $30 million of other people's money on this festival. It didn't happen. And now he's now in jail for 6 years.
There you go, man. Whoop, whoop.
It's definitely like something worth watching. And also like the bigger like theme to this is not just like the con that went on and how this guy just scammed everyone, but also like how social media, like Instagram, is just really fucking terrible for society.
Yeah.
I mean, it made like I think like Twitter is bad. I love Twitter though, but like
I think Twitter is bad. I love Twitter though.
But like Instagram, it's just like the fake facades they put out on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way they did it, like their marketing campaign was just have one big orange square, and you click on it and the video plays, and you were just sucked into this like alternate reality that these people thought they were getting and just spent like thousands of dollars and so.
Cool, man. That's awesome. So check them out. Do you know what are the names of them? Do you know offhand?
Fire Fraud is the Hulu one, and then like Fire Festival, the most hyped up festival never happened, is like the Netflix one. Now the Netflix one, there is some to be aware of. The Netflix one did not interview the con artist Billy McFarland, but it was produced in partnership with the like the media company Fuck Jerry that was involved with putting the festival together.
Very
so
interesting.
Kind of like, there's a kind of like background where like the Netflix one kind of like takes the blame away from Fuck Jerry and like influencing them through social media, where the Hulu one has a former Fuck Jerry employee almost at the center of it, like detailing like the shit that was going on. They knew this was like a fraud at the beginning, and they did it anyway because hell, it's money.
Right. And, hella money.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. Cool.
I mean, like some of his employees, like this guy destroyed the credit, like ran up $250,000 worth of like credit card fraud on like his employees' credit cards. And now like they're left holding the bag for like Capital One with like this insane amount of credit card debt and shit like that. Like, yeah, like, I mean, this guy just left a wake of destruction, like with all of this. This is what happens when you see like, I mean, I really think though he could probably run for president one day and win.
My God. There you go.
I mean, the guy's a sociopath. You just see it. Like, it's...
Well, we've got a precedent for that now, so all good. Well, for me this week, I finally finished season 2 of Ozark, and boy, am I glad I stuck with it. Right? I have to say so. Thank you again, Sean, for even turning me on to this one.
Yes.
It's, I mean, it is surprising as a show in so many ways. And I think, like, when I said it, like, in the intro today that, like, Laura Linney rocks, totally. Her character, the writing of the show is great, but her character, or her as the actor playing that character, she is unbelievable. And the thing is about the show, which is remarkable, I was thinking a lot about this after I kind of watched the conclusion of it, is that what starts out as being about a a fairly kind of well organized or a kind of a repeat of how you would expect a crime drama to happen, especially about drug lords and mobsters, things like this. You completely have a gender shift in the entire show.
Yeah.
Right? The most powerful characters that come out at the end of season 2 are women. Right? And I think it's just freaking amazing to see this play itself out. And the fact that like it doesn't,
especially the time we're in now too.
Totally. I mean, it's like
right now.
It's like, yeah. and so you should know, having said that, let me just be clear, right? Ozark, there are no heroes in Ozark. Okay. There's none. There's no one who's good. Right. So, and that's what's that's the, so you start with that mentality, but the fact is that the characters are so compelling. The storylines get more interesting and complicated. Right. And just the way that the show builds like tension and kind of like brings you to the brink of like the unraveling of everything is just great. So definitely my plug for it. I don't want to say too much more about just the plot lines of it, just because it's like it's worth going through the experience of going through there.
Yeah, no, it's a great show. I got through like the first season fairly quickly, and then like once I was like, okay, so I saw my sister was watching the second season, and I just like, all right, I'm just going to jump right in and like take this over and watch it. Like it's amazing. It's like you think that some of the people are so innocent until like one of the flashback episodes happen, and it's just like,
yeah, the second season was freaking like gangbusters good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to like the third season because they're already shooting it.
Yeah, and so there's starting to some leaks coming out like about plot lines. I refuse to even look at any of them. I don't want to know. I don't want it. I want the experience of going through season 3.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the new Peaky Blinders season to come out.
There you go. That's still on my list. I haven't watched it yet, so
you should watch it. I think this year like the main villains are going to be IRA members, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, good. Well, it's fitting. This week, the real IRA, the kind of like extremist thing, just blew up a car in Derry, which is where my friend Stu lives, right? So I got in touch with him to see if he was all right, and he said, yeah, a bunch of frickin', basically jag-offs, like didn't even cause much damage. Well, thank God, right? No one was killed or anything like that. But there you have it. But what else I was going to say? I was hoping to be able to give you a little bit of my reaction to last night's episode of Star Trek Discovery, which is, it's in its season 2, but I was too tired last night, and so I decided instead of trying to force myself to stay up late, I'm going to get some sleep, and I'm going to watch it today. So I'll let you know next week. I'll have a double episode update for you. This weekend at Free Will will be its first Sour Sunday of 2019, which is pretty cool. That will be this Sunday, right? Bifurcations. And on Saturday, that's tomorrow, Free Will is releasing its latest release, Angel. And Angel, it's created for the Beer Advocate Festival, the Extreme Beer Fest that's in Boston this year. It's happening on February 1st and February 2nd. They call this thing, I want to give you the whole description because it sounds really interesting. It's a, quote, new age, no boil IPA with Galaxy, Vic Secret, and Mosaic, right? It's a 6.3% ABV. And what that means exactly, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. But here's how they describe it. ... And with one sip, fluffy, pillowy, ethereal droplets of hop-filled liquid so divine that one might say it's brewed by an angel descend upon the palate and coat the mouth with a heavenly beer. Angel was brewed with local malt from Deer Creek Malt House, Bloody Butcher heirloom cornmeal from Castle Valley Mill, and utilized a, quote, new age, no boil method in order to achieve the fluffiest, most feathery mouthfeel possible for an earthly beer. Combine the cherubic body with the luscious papaya, mango, banana, custard, tropical fruit juice, hops notes, and blissful Angel Angel got its wings. Hop with Galaxy, Vic, and sit with Mosaic. So there you have it. I mean, there's all the hype that you could possibly want in a description of a beer. So check it out. We've got a really cool image that's up online for it. If you click the link in the show notes, you'll be able to check it out. That will be available in 4-packs tomorrow. So it's set to release at the Beer Fest on the 1st of February next week. but you can get yours starting tomorrow at both locations in 4-pack. So that's what I got this week, Sean. Anything else you got going on?
So we didn't talk about on the podcast today. I really wish we did. Roger Stone was seen leaving court.
Oh, my God. We didn't talk about it?
No, we didn't. We fucking missed over it.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
You're going to the jail. You're going
Roger
to the
Stone
jail.
left.
That's a felony also.
What's that?
Roger Stone left the courtroom like this.
Doing the Nixon thing?
Yes. Yes. And then Chris Johnson, the former wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, tweeted this morning, FBI arrested my neighbor Roger before my morning jog. I've only seen shit like that in the movies. Crazy start to my Friday.
Oh, man. I can't believe it. We talked about it in the intro, but we never got to it in the discussion. Yes, Roger Stone is going to the Pokey. Yes. So crazy. Well, I mean, with him in there, and again, we should be clear, it's on obstruction of justice charges primarily. But if you go to the links in the show notes, there's two separate links. You click on his name, it'll take you directly to the indictment. Right, because the indictment actually is now posted online, so you can actually see all the specific things. So you can fully expect your weekend to be packed with Roger Stone. Like, and I know that Maddow is probably going to the whole show is going to be a reading of the indictment to an analysis of Roger Stone's arrest.
A lot of people have been waiting for this day for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was everything, it was all the targets were being set. Everything was being laid up for this. It's just a question of when it was going to happen. And then the fact that it was 6 a.m. in the morning, busting in on him and kind of dragging him off to jail is awesome.
Yes.
So.
Oh, one other good news this week.
All right.
I got my windshield replaced.
Thank God. Sean was driving with, actually he had no windshield. It was actually it was open. He was having some trouble with rain and some wind at high speeds. So he decided he better finally get some glass in there. He said he enjoyed the old timey feel of with an open windshield, but it was getting a little much.
So I had a crack in my windshield.
Yeah.
For the past, I really don't even want to admit how long. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. We'll say, how long have I known you?
And I'm driving out to Pittsburgh next week for the summit, so it's I have to get my car. It's amazing what happens when you have a job that pays.
Yeah. That you can get your car inspected.
Well, they didn't they didn't give me the stickers for the car, so I could just oh, officer, I'm sorry, I got my windshield replaced the other day, and they didn't give me the inspection stuff.
Yeah, and he'll be like, "Don't worry, son, we can look that up on our fancy newfangled computer systems." That
is that? I don't think that's in the computer system.
Whether your car's been inspected or not?
Yeah.
Why would you believe that it wouldn't be?
I think it's just registration.
I think that's just hopeful thinking on your part.
No, I am going to have my car inspected for the first time in a while within the next couple of weeks as well.
Thank fucking God. I'm sorry. I'm everything.
I look at it like this. I've only put 5,000 miles on my car this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just get this shit done with. And
yeah,
I'm not going to be putting that many miles on my car a year.
Right.
I could have this thing for another 10 years and not put that.
So how about say that you can make yourself your New Year's resolution that you're going to just kind of make this part of your yearly routine to get your car inspected. How about that? Yeah, I know that's a lot to ask you, and that goes against years and years of precedent. But, but here you go. What cool.
Hey, it's when you have a job that pays.
Yeah. So did you have to pay for it? Or did your insurance take care of the windshield?
I had to pay for it.
What's that?
I had to pay for it.
You had to pay for it. Yeah.
I mean, for me to do the insurance, it would be an extra $10 or $20 a month, and then to add glass repairment onto that my policy. And at that point, it's just
yeah, because I'm gonna have to get I have to get mine replaced too as well. I got 2 dings in my windshield that's been there. I mean, they've been there for a couple of years, but I do hour drive at high speeds all the time and through construction zones. So my windshield is so pitted that it gets kind of dangerous if you have sun glare and things like that. So,
but it's amazing how clear a new windshield is once it goes on.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it?
It's almost like there's nothing in front of your face.
Oh man! Well, congratulations, Sean. I'm very happy. Right, I'm very happy for you. But, well, I get right after we kind of close off the recording today, I get to head off to the vets because, like as he said, my update from my dog Potter, he got neutered last Tuesday or something like this, and so now it's his file-up vet. He's doing great, but he's been wearing his cone of shame, as my kids call it, for the past 3 weeks, and so hopefully he's going to get it off today because it's he's been a really good sport and he's been doing great. He's he always sits right down here. He gets excited for the podcast actually because he knows that he knows it's going to happen. What's that?
Quiet.
Yeah, well, it comes down to we're sitting here talking. And he lays down next to it, and he's just happy. This is what he wants. So,
I wish I could live a lifestyle like that.
Yeah, tell me about it. You'll have someone cut your balls off, and you get all the food you want. Is that what you mean? It's Sean's wish, everybody. If you want to know,
well, I'm not getting married yet.
Oh man!
I don't just lay around and enjoy life and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who does that for a living. All right, man. Well, hey, have an awesome weekend, and we'll kind of see you online and get ready for yet another crazy week ahead.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, and you're headed out to Pittsburgh, right? No, that's next week.
Next week, yes, for the podcast.
Yeah, so we should say, everybody, so if you actually think that'd be a great idea that Sean would actually kind of do a podcast from the PA Progressive Summit out in Pittsburgh next week, please direct tweet him and message him and let him know that it'd be great to hear an update from there because right now Sean's just I don't know. I don't know if I'm be interested.
Okay. So my question is, I don't have a laptop, and how am I supposed to do it?
Huh? Your phone. You can do it on your phone. Next question.
I'm not going to be killing my data.
Oh, they're not going to have Wi-Fi in the hotel, Sean?
It'll probably be really shitty.
Yeah, see, he looks sick. He's making excuses already. But so we'll figure out what we're going to do next week. Maybe I'll do a little special. I've got a couple kind of interview ideas that I wanted to get set up. So maybe maybe I'll plug in something like that. But if we are able to get an update from Sean, or maybe Sean just knows somebody else at the conference who would actually be willing to talk, that'd be awesome too as well. So maybe you can just kind of float some ideas my way. Maybe there's some people that you're going to be with who are not going to be drunk, who are going to be would be willing to talk to me that I can call them and get an update. How's that? All right, man. Well, hey, have a great week. I'm going to head off to the vets and wait for all the craziness of the Roger Stone and government shutdown stuff to continue. All right, man.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later.
All right, so this has been Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken, and Sean Kitchen out there in Harrisburg. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next week. See ya!
I feel like I'm in the middle of a Godfather movie, the way the president is acting now.
I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well.
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart and I want respect.